Jason Hunter, introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi there, y'all. Some of you I've met before, and I've been at previous meetings, including the one last month, to talk about RTRP from a Riverside perspective. And if you don't know, and I didn't want to crouch too much in on the mayor's topic, but part of that project is going to be an overhead transmission line that runs right along the Hidden Valley Nature Reserve. Overhead, we're talking about 90-foot lines from the west end of town all the way into, I believe, Ward 3, even, so the midsection of town. So this is something, once again, that also could be undergrounded, but it needs to be, your councilmen need to hear about it, and we have the money to do it. We've got $325 million in reserves sitting there. For what purpose? I've never really got a clear answer on, but that, could be done. And that project is ongoing right now, so you don't see a lot of the city talking about it. And sometimes I think the reason they're not talking about it is because they don't want the folks on the list to know if the project's actually going on. So anyway, so my name is Jason Hunter, an MIT engineer. I got a business degree in energy finance. I've worked in the utility industry for 20 years. I've managed billions of dollars for several Fortune 100, if not 500 energy companies. I recently worked for RPU before we had a parting of the ways. In the end, it ended up, I thank you all for the settlement that you paid. I appreciate that. Came out of your bills. So I'm here to talk about tonight. Maybe some of you have heard about it, maybe some of you haven't. The RPU, Riverside Public Utilities, is planning a rate increase. How many people know that there's a rate increase being planned here? Maybe half, maybe 2/3. That's okay. So that's not bad, to tell you the truth, and it's coming, proposed to be coming your way April of this year, and so there's really not, an organized resistance to this that I know of, but I figured I'd go around to a few of the community meetings, and also I attended, I think, about 4 of the RPU meetings, which aren't really community meetings because they're not held at established community meetings. They're just one-off meetings where it's kind of like listening to the minister of propaganda give you the one side of the story, right? And then you get a chance to maybe ask one question, and then they send you on your way. So anyway, so I figured I'd come and speak at a few of these, put something together. I put together this handout fairly quickly. I think it goes over a lot of the main points. And really the point is to kind of tell you, as they're explaining in their presentations, their side of the story, which you'll find with the City of Riverside. And the mayor is, I guess, has learned this already, but I'm sure still continuing to learn, as the rest of us are who have had our issues with the city over the years. There's a lot of half-truths. There's a lot of lies of admission. There's a lot of false equivalencies, right, when you deal with the city when they want to get something they want. So I figured, in deference to the late, great Paul Harvey, who I loved, I would call this one RPU, the rest of the story. So, he did it much better. But anyway, so the utility, right? A lot of people don't understand, what is the utility? What is RPU? What is it? It's a government-owned entity that supplies electric service and water service, right? But who owns it? Who owns it?
We do.
Did anybody see all those billboards all over town for years and years and years with a big picture of smiling faces saying, I own it? Do you know what that means? That you do own it. Yep. You're all shareholders, more or less, in that utility. You own it. If the city tomorrow was to decide to sell that utility, guess who the proceeds have to go to benefit? You, the ratepayers, not the city's general fund, and it's customer owned. It's right there on the poster. Customer owned since 1895. It's city operated. Okay. Meaning we have a Board of Public Utilities, which is appointed by the City Council, more or less. They do the City Council's bidding, right? And then you have the City Council makes the final decisions. They operate. They don't own it. You guys own it, because you paid for the whole thing through paying your rates for the last, I don't know how many people here are 122 years old, but the last 122 years, okay? So that's really important, and then most people don't understand what a powerful difference just that little nuance makes, okay? Which means if you don't want rates to increase, 51% of you just have to put up your hand and say, I don't want it. And guess what? Rates aren't increasing. You're the owners. So let's go, the City of Riverside, with a mission statement. What is it here to do? The City of Riverside Public Utilities, right there, is committed to the highest quality water and electric service at the lowest possible rates to benefit the community. Okay, that's it. The lowest possible rates. Safe, reliable energy. Okay, so what are they proposing? What are they proposing in these rate increases? If you haven't heard about it, read the newspaper, living under a rock, wherever you've been. Okay, here we are. You're going to catch up right now. In a nutshell, if you're a low-use water user, you're looking at a 60% plus increase in your water rates in the next 5 years. Okay. If you're an electric user, you're looking at a 25% plus increase in your electric rates over the next 5 years. Okay. What does that mean? That means by the end of year 5, the average customer is going to pay about $50 more per month in their bill they get from RPU every month. $600 a year. It's not unsubstantial. It's a pretty big increase. So how did they come at this number? Well, I was in the room 2 years ago. It was up in the mayor's ceremonial room. I don't know if people have been up there in the 7th floor of City Hall. I hope you never have to attend those meetings, but I went. And a 4-hour, 5-hour meeting, and they talked about Utility 2.0 and all the things they wanted to do with the utility to get it into the 21st century, maybe the 22nd century. And they basically, all these bells and whistles they showed the council, and they said, we want to spend $1 billion. $1 billion. And the council said, you go ahead and do it. And no one in the room besides me, I asked, well, what is the rate impact going to be? No one on our council asked, how is this going to impact the customer owners? They just said, go ahead and do it. And the projects that they listed, it was, I am an engineer. And if you come to me and you say, I want you to do this project, and you put everything you want into it, it's going to be an expensive project, right? If you just write me a blank check and say, some of you must know engineers, right? You say, give me something simple like put in a home audio video system. Next thing you know, it's $50,000 if you give them a blank check, right? It could be $100,000. You can spend endless amounts of money, and that's what our city council told RPU. So there's no real doubt why this came back the way it did, okay? Because they just said, hey, it's free money, right? So why are they saying that, they need this rate increase? And how many of you have seen these sheets that have been passed out by the city? They've been giving them out at all the public meetings. Yeah. They've had I think they're planning on, or they've had 50 public meetings on this. So if you haven't, heard of it, it hasn't been very well marketed, and they still have some more that they're planning on doing. I think their general public meetings, ward specific, are concluded finally. The last one I think was last Thursday at La Sierra High School Library. But there's still a few special interest meetings left. Maybe you can find out about if you question RPU, but I don't think they're on the website though. So they come out with all these glossy flyers, right? These cost a fair amount of money to print. And they come out with, they have a nice big presentation, and they present before the Board of Public Utilities, and they present before the council, and they say, we need it. This is it, to protect our health and safety by ensuring reliable electric and water service, and to satisfy state mandates for clean energy. That's the party line. Sounds pretty good, right? I mean, who can argue with that? It's like arguing with motherhood baseball and apple pie, right? I mean, that's, but what does that mean, right? So I wanted to give you, you're going to get their presentation if you go to any of these meetings. And I'll kind of go through what their presentation is. That's what I call them the red herrings. These are the sort of the arguments they make, and then I'm going to tell you the other side of the story they don't really tell you. Okay, and we'll reach a conclusion towards the end, and I'll give you my recommendation, or what I'm going to suggest them for what they kind of need to do with this full rate thing. So the first thing they always say, right, I'm not sure if you've been to any utility meeting, the first thing they always say is, our rates are lower than everybody else's, so we must be doing a great job, right? By definition, they're lower, okay? And so my answer is always, so what? I own it. The mission statement doesn't say, back up above here in the second paragraph, you'll see it doesn't say water and electric services at the lowest, at rates lower than our neighbors. It says at the lowest possible rates to benefit the community, okay? The difference between lower than our neighbors and the lowest possible rates. We own it. I want the lowest possible rate that's safe and reliable, okay?
So they say, oh, we're 15% lower than Edison on the electric side. We're 40% lower than Western, okay? But what does that mean? What does that really mean? What are the comparables? You know, are we just like Edison? Are we just like Western? Well, no. It's a false equivalency, like you've heard the mayor of Hoopa Valley say. There's a lot of those. When you look at Edison, that is an investor-owned utility. They pay federal and state taxes. RPU does not pay taxes, okay? Particularly on any of its bonds, it pays no taxes, right? Edison has to. Secondly, RPU, I don't know, maybe you guys have received one. I've never received a dividend check for owning this, okay? I know Edison has to send out dividend checks every year to its owners, okay? So, of course it's going to be lower, okay? And know what our dividend check is? Our dividend check is the fact that we get lower electricity rates. That is it. So we have to be lower. If we weren't lower than Edison, we'd be the worst run utility in the state, okay? And so I took a look at, there was an article in the LA Times, and I didn't bring it with me. I would put it on a presentation if I had time to throw that together. And it was a study conducted by the Southern California Public Power Authority, of which RPU is a member. Okay, they're a member of this agency, it's this joint powers agency. And they did a study on, well, who has the lowest rates in Southern California amongst the publicly owned utilities. So folks kind of like RPU. And this is what they found out. And this isn't my study. Once again, this is an agency they belong to. That of the 12 similar agencies in Southern California, for everybody but the lowest users of electricity, RPU ranks 8 out of 12. Okay, that doesn't seem to me like a particularly well-run utility. That seems, you know, fair to middling, maybe even a little bit worse. Okay, and amongst the low users of electricity, RPU ranks dead last, 12 out of 12. If you are a low user of electricity, they're the most expensive in the region. That's the reality, not the story that we're lower than Edison. Okay? And on the water side, they love to compare ourselves to Western. And I think to myself, well, we had John North and all the the ancestors of Riverside, the forefathers, went up, signed a deal in San Bernardino 100 years ago to get us free water. Western has to pay for its water out of the state water project, right? We have it for free. The cost of water that we get out of the ground is nothing more for our customers, RPU's customers, than the cost to transport it. Okay, you have to pay to transport the water. But the water itself, sitting in all those aquifers and basins, okay, zero. And that's one of the largest costs for an agency like Western to buy the water. So we should be 40% less. I might argue we should be a lot less than 40% less.
Yeah.
We don't have to pay for any water. Okay, so RPU doesn't give you apples to apples comparison, it gives you apples to oranges. Don't fall for it. Okay. The second thing is, they'll say, I always say, don't become an infrastructure zombie. Okay, all infrastructure good. It's baloney. We do need infrastructure, but let me tell you something. Over the last 13 years, we spent over $40 million a year on infrastructure. Where did it go? The whole utility is only probably $2 billion. So if we spent $500 million, replacing things and new stuff, and that money is on just new projects. It doesn't even include the money they spent on ongoing maintenance and operations. $400 just on new stuff. Okay, so if infrastructure is falling apart, isn't the first question people should be asking, well, who's in charge here? Like, why is it falling apart? Like, wait a second, you've been here for 20 years. Why haven't you told us earlier? Well, we do have our former general manager of the utility. New guy's been on the scene for about 3 years, so he's blaming it on the old guy. The old guy went to LA, by the way. Now he's the head of LA. He's their problem, right? He's the head of LA DWP. Okay. But where is he in Riverside? He's sitting on our Budget Engagement Commission telling the council how to spend money. You can believe it. Only in Riverside. That's what he said. So we've issued, currently on our books, if you're wondering how much we've spent in infrastructure in the last 10 years or so, we have $800 million in revenue bonds currently outstanding to the utility. That's just for infrastructure. Okay? We've spent gads and gads and gads of money on infrastructure. Do we need some? Well, you're always going to need some to replace some and upgrade some. But this whole idea that everything's falling apart is a complete sham, folks. I worked for RPU. We were doing projects all the time, okay? So what are they using the money on now? I always kind of laugh because I go to almost every single Board of Public Utilities meetings. And I could use some company because it gets a little lonely there at times. I got to tell you. They're about an hour and a half, 2 hours, sometimes 2.5 hour meetings. I kind of sit by myself, and there's 15 people from staff on the other side of the room, and I'm just kind of by myself. It's lonely. So if anybody wants to come 6 o'clock or 6:30 on Mondays, I could use somebody to chit chat with and laugh at while they're doing all sorts of stuff with your money, with our money. And so, what are they doing with some of the projects? Did you know this? Did you know this is your utility? What are we spending money on? Did you know that you guys, your money was spent building? They're starting to build a fiber optic utility with your money. But here's the great thing. You're not going to get to access it. It's only big institutional and businesses that will be able to access the fiber optic network. None of it will ever go to the residents. They already know that. And yet they're building it with your rate money. Okay? Another project. They're building a giant recycled water facility. Why do we need more water? I thought we were selling our water to Western, right? For all this money, right? The recycled water will be sold at reduced rates. But guess what, folks? You're not getting any of it. It's going to all big institutional and business customers. But they're using your money. We're paying for a specific plan for the north side. You guys out here in the West End are paying for a specific plan to be done on the north side. I've never heard of a utility customer or a utility paying for a specific plan is like a general plan, except for more specific. Gotcha. So we're putting in, we were nice enough to buy the folks at the utility administration a $40 million utility building right downtown at the corner of Market and University.
Oh, yeah.
$40 million. You guys bought it for them. I've been up on the executive floor. They have their own private bathroom. You can't use it though. You don't have a kid. Okay? They've got $5,000 desks and $5,000 TV screens. They built a $600,000 boardroom that they can't even use because they were embarrassed out of using it right before they completed construction on it. I think it had $120,000 of furniture in the boardroom. That's your money. Okay? I didn't see a stripper pole, but I heard that comment. So the next thing they like to say is, so a lot of money's being wasted, is what I'm saying. Okay, it's being wasted for stuff you're never going to see a benefit from. I mean, I'd say it's more than just unethical. I'd say it's illegal. So, and I'll get into that in a second. Next argument they say is, well, we haven't had a rate increase for 7 years. You know, CPI has gone up 13%. Look at the cost of bacon versus 13 years ago. I mean, what the hell does the cost of bacon have to do with the cost of electricity? You know, I mean, I always laugh at that one. I look at some things, believe it or not, in the world, there's innovation and the costs come down. Anybody bought a laptop here in the last, 10 years? Okay. Things do on occasion actually come down in price through innovation and technology and advancements. And I can tell you, having worked in this industry for 2 decades, I have seen nothing like the amount of innovation because of the money being pumped into it on the energy side of the equation. There is so much new technology out there on electricity in particular, but also in water, that we didn't even think about 10 years ago, okay? So the price of this stuff, in my opinion, should be coming down, all right? So I also say, this is your answer. You say, you know what, if you go back enough time to 15 years ago, what were you paying in water or electricity? How many people keep your old bills and say, well, how much was I paying in, OT 1 or OT 2, right? So I do that, okay? And so if you look since 2001, your water bills on average have gone up 100%, okay? 100% before this 60% proposed increase, okay? And your electric bills have gone up 50%, okay? And so where did that money end up going? Well, was anybody here for when I talked about the reserves, how they stockpiled $325 million of reserves? Well, that's where your money went. It went on, and the council, this is the great thing. So when I uncovered that giant slush fund of money, I would say most of all, probably all, of the council didn't even know it existed. Didn't even know there was a $325 million pot of money sitting there undedicated on RPU's balance sheet. And then when they were caught with that money, what did they do? They justified every reason